We're live, huh? Okay. All righty. All righty. All right. Welcome, everybody. It is 6:01 on August the 14th. Thank you. 2025. It's the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Call to order, and we'll do a roll call. Penny Burke. Elise Beth.
Neil Murray. Josh Saunders.
Dorothy Hill, and we have a guest, Rich Bourbonnais, and we've got Luke Murray. Approval of the minutes. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a chance to, at least Beth and I, to finalize them, so we'll have to push them to next month. So we'll do that. So correspondence and public comment. I have been around this month. I have spoken with folks in Narragansett, in Charlestown, and been to a RIPTA meeting, and so lots of stuff, but I think I'll share that with everybody at the end. And I think we've also had some other folks that may have been out in the community. But since we have a special guest here this evening, we thought we'd start with you, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Is that okay? Then you can get on with this beautiful day.
That's great. Thank
Okay. All righty. So anyway, we wanted to get together with you to talk well in advance on the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan. And I know that you're probably just getting going with it.
Yes.
But where we can perhaps provide some input, we would like to be able to do that, at this stage, rather than interrupting you and saying, well, what about this? What about this? So is there anything you can tell us about where you are, what you're looking at, what your budget is? I did talk to Luke just before everybody got here, because there was reference to the roadway pavement management plan.
Yes.
Last year. And so I don't know if you want to tell us, or if Luke wants to repeat what he just told me a minute ago about what that's about.
Okay, so we did have a funding approved for a pavement management plan, and I believe it was $120,000 or $130,000. And what that would entail is hiring a firm to prepare for us, effectively a 1 to 100. Every roads and where they're ranked as far as the quality of the road, what condition it's in, based on condition. So what they do is they drive every road, they videotape it, they analyze the data, and they give every road a ranking and discuss what needs to happen. It'll include, our stone seal program as well as repavement, and we hope to get a database, following all of that. But so we received a cost, an estimated cost from Beta Engineering. Mm-hmm. I received an approval at council at the last meeting the meeting before, to hire Beta, mm-hmm. and they approved it. So I'm just seeking signature on the contract at this point. So as soon as that's signed, they'll go out. So I hopefully within the next few months we could start to see some data from that. And what that'll do is then it just provides us what I would believe sort of that empirical data that gets me into the council. So this is the road we're going to pave. I'm only talking about maintenance here. That's all I'm talking about, is the maintenance of the road. Mm-hmm. Repaving, stone sealing, those types of things. So, we're going to go in and repave this road, and this is what the data shows us. This is why we're doing it now. And then that way, the dollars are, I think, maybe spent more smartly, or smarter.
The criteria, is it just the condition of the road, or is it also the usage of the road, like how heavily traveled it is?
Strictly condition.
Okay, but then based on what they say, you might, and the town council or whoever is deciding might say, yeah, that road is in bad shape, but it doesn't have the usage that this other road has.
They could.
They could, okay.
So it doesn't, it's not the decision, it's just the basis for them to make a decision, or at
Okay.
least some information for them to make a decision. What the council does on any particular road could change. They could say, listen, yeah, we understand that road may be up there in its condition, or
Yeah.
at least in sort of the bad way. Then they may say, no, but we really rather see this road advance because we think we want to make other improvements to that road, perhaps. And let's do it all at once. Okay, and we could do it all at once, and why not do that road now? They could do that.
Okay.
Anything can happen.
And generally, it has to go before the town council to decide on which roads? Or is
Every-
that part of the capital improvement plan?
As part of the capital plan, there's a pavement reclamation part of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, and you'll see in this is actually from the 25-26 plan, that's just
Okay.
extracted from the plan that was approved. So those are the roads and when they're approved, and that's a 6-year projection on when they were approved.
Okay.
Now, that was based on our experience. That may change now once we
Yeah.
get some data.
Yeah,
So you'll see a portion of that is dedicated to just pavement management. And then there's a portion dams and there's equipment and all those other things. So those are all sort of different categories. Yeah, the council approves every single one of those improvements.
okay.
And that's a 6-year projection, but they're only approving that 1 year. They're not approving what
Okay.
comes up. So you'll see that that's changed many times over the
Yes.
years.
Yeah.
When they assess the condition, are they just assessing the surface and underlying support condition, or are they also assessing the condition in regards to width for multimodal use?
No, they're only assessing the condition of the road. We're only talking about the maintenance of the surface.
Of the
That's it.
existing surface
That's it.
only?
That's it. So any other projects or anything else that would be done, in Congress or separate from this. But I'm just talking about strictly the maintenance of our roads. That's all
So
this is.
if there's already fog lines, if there's already crosswalks, will the painting to repaint those be part of the plan, be part of the
Yeah, so,
maintenance plan?
well, so when we go back and do any road, we go back exactly the way it was. Without an engineering sort of study, we don't like to make changes. If we were to say in 6 years, we know we're gonna do a certain road, but we wanna make additional improvements to that, well, that's fine. That's a good amount of time to gear up, and then additional dollars can be applied to that road for those types of improvements if we were gonna do something beyond what's existing.
Okay,
But when we put out a contract for a road to have it repaved, in addition to the paving surface, there are line items for painting. And they have to go back and paint it. The contractor is required to paint that road exactly the way it was. We do not make very rarely do we make any changes. I say do not, but you never know what can happen. I mean,
yeah.
there may be other reasons or other.
So how can we affect that? Because that's probably our least expensive, lowest cost way of doing wayfinding or making it a safer, more pedestrian safe, bicycle safe traveling throughout the town. How can we affect that?
So, well, painting isn't necessarily low cost. I mean, I'm only provided $20,000 a year, and that's our entire paint contract each year. So we repaint many of our roads, the ones that are most faded first, but then we will address other roads as well. So, it's a matter of increasing that portion of the budget. If we were to say, listen, we want to do these other things, or there could be another line. There can always be line items added to the budget too. We could say, listen, we want to do additional crosswalks, or we want to do additional. We want to seek those sites out. Well, let's allocate additional dollars for that. But when I do that, it's a percentage of the budget that's jumping up. So, and if we're looking to level fund, something's got to give. So it's a balancing act. Now, other things that can happen. There's a lot of things that can happen with a budget. The end of the year, there's end of year transfers. We can move those monies over sometimes. Very, it's very loose to make those types of decisions. Those are the types of things that can happen. But we can also, when we anticipate things like salting and sanding has become a vehicle by which we don't sand as much. Let's say, for example. So those dollars we've applied because we've gotten additional dollars. We're not sanding as much, so those dollars have been reapplied to different aspects, mostly stone seal. And I'll tell you why, because we were estimating when some of these early lists, and Ken can attest to this because he's dealing with the URI, I'm sure, but we were estimating $85 a linear foot, $75 a linear foot. When I started here, we were looking at $75 a linear foot to repave a road. We're at $125 to $130 to repave a road. So what that means is we're doing less. So that's a problem because now these roads are kind of jacked up. They're backing up. And so I have spent the past 2 years at the request of the council to whittle down some of our capital reserve. We had millions in capital reserve. And I'm down to about $1 million. I don't want to get any lower than that. So I can't really do much more unless it's fronted. So from now on, we're looking at, if I'm going to do Gravelly Hill Road, well, it's 9,000 linear feet. It's like, well, how do I do that in one season? I cannot. That's half, then half. So it's a 2-year cycle. So that means something gets bumped back. So there are other ways to work it, but yes, you're right in the sense that it's short dollars. But I don't like, adding crosswalks and things like that unless I have some sort of engineering backup to that. Even URI, I know that URI has a traffic engineer that they put stuff to, and they say, well, listen, they did it on campus, and what was great about campus was I received a study from an engineer to say, listen, this is what we want to do on campus. We think it'll work fine. It helps tremendously because then that alleviates us from, potential problems down the line if we've made mistakes on what we can do. So, there are things we can do, and we're talking with the chief about those types of things. How do we get those types of studies done so that we can expedite some of these requests? And what would be really helpful is if we were to say, if we had an engineer, let's say a traffic engineer, that we could look to say, listen, we need a quick study, and we refund that. We fund that each year and say, listen, we'll provide a certain amount of dollars. Those are things we can allocate. To say, listen, do engineering studies, but then what we can do is then we can say, okay, now we know, well, we need this much money for pavement, painting, and things like that, and from experience.
So
We'll build
how do
on it.
people's requests for traffic calming come into play with the repaving and all
Well,
that? 'Cause
they
that's-
don't.
They don't? Okay.
It typically doesn't. What we're
I'm just
finding is
curious.
it's after, a lot of these are after the fact, and speed and traffic management it's an ongoing talk, right? So like a lot of the things that we see is people are requesting more speed feedback signs. We are responding to some of that. There was actually on this last agenda, the award for 3,
Right.
I think. Striping is one strategy. The Safe Streets for All plan did have some strategies that we could probably implement, and that does have some documentation behind it that we can look at. I think, and I've explained this too, is the difficulty for us is, and you mentioned Gravelly Hill Road, right? That whole roadway can't get done in one capital cycle, and I was discussing this earlier with Dorothy. We're not in a position to exponentially increase our capital budget because everyone wants to keep taxes low. Right, and then we have a lot of other projects, high school and some big ticket items. We're ramping up EMS. So for us, while it may be an extra $20,000, it's $20,000 every single year. So while we may be able to allocate, let's say $10,000 to go stripe a roadway, we're like, great. But now you've got to go out and redo it, right? That adds into the operational cost year over year. And so it's not that we don't want to do it. We're trying to figure out a sustainable way to, one, hear the requests. Some of that request has to go to council, and they have to prioritize it in a way that says, okay, you may not be able to afford X, Y, and Z. And when I say we're literally like counting beans, a lot of times in these budget cycles, it's tight.
So things like Kersey Road. Okay, so we received a request to look at Kersey Road. It went to council. Council asked us to really look into it. We were able to receive some grant dollars to get the engineering done. The engineering is $110,000 or $120,000. So we're in the middle of that, and we are going to DEM. In fact, I think they're going to submit to DEM. They might have submitted today. So when that design comes back, which I think it'll be a good design. I mean, I'm happy with where it's going. It's going to include a sidewalk along the entire edge of Kersey Road. You know, the narrowness of Kersey Road, I mean, it's only, I think through much of it, it's 20 feet wide, 21, 22. You know, it's not offering us a lot of options, but it does get a sidewalk at least on the other side of the road. Now it's going to be a question of, well, how do we get it funded to construct it? I mean, we're getting estimates, and I've already requested an advance estimate, so that'll go as a separate. It'll have to go as a separate capital project, and I mean, it's to the tune of $700,000.
That was one of the STIP items,
It
correct?
is. So we're hoping that we may try to seek, and we've talked about this, grant dollars for that, because for us to do that would sort of put everything off another year. All of these roads, which is, you know, we have some roads that are really in need. Gravelly Hill's one of them. I mean, try to drive in Pond Street right now. It's absolutely awful.
Don't drive down my street. And don't fix it, please, because I prefer it that way. People
So I just, you know, it's a give and take. It's a give and take. We're always looking, and Luke and I are always talking about potential for dollars that are out there that, you know, that we, you know, you get a grant, you do a matching fund, and maybe we're dealing with matching funds versus funding the whole thing. So we're always looking for those types of opportunities, and whether that comes up or not, you know, I can't say. But again, the way Kersey Road worked, you know, the initial part is the engineering of it.
So Rich mentioned this earlier too. We have had discussions over the past year because, quite honestly, the pedestrian things don't come up as much as speed and traffic, because distracted driving, everything else. And you've heard it, right? The Green Hill people, all that. So what we've talked about is creating a fund whereby, and it may accomplish some mutual goals, because striping is one of the things that can create some calming, right? Get stripes on the roads. Is creating a fund that would be for those small measures, to speed feedback signs,
Right.
striping, small things to help with that.
Yeah.
And the kind of the tangential, and I don't want to call it tangential, but it is in some ways, of creating lanes and doing some of the things you want to be done, could be done with those monies. And it's short money, but it creates something whereby we have money for engineering, we have money for some low-cost enhancements, and on a sustainable basis,
Yeah.
moving forward. The Safe Streets for All, going back to that, could we start implementing some of those recommendations? So we are trying to like carve out some funds for that. In addition, and Rich you may want to speak to this, the bond funds that have been sitting there, and we've talked about the multimodal plan
Yeah.
in the past, and Rich has brought it up a number of times, like, should we just be using this for physical improvements? And I think we go back and forth on this. Like, do we want another plan? But the realities of that plan is, if we don't have the money to implement that plan, are we
Right.
better spending some money on the lower cost enhancements, you know?
Well, I just wanted to interrupt for a second, because you said, the speed, you're talking about, well, we don't get a chance to do pedestrian and bike what we want, because we have to deal with speed. That is directly correlating to the safety that people feel walking and biking, because they don't always have sidewalks. So the issue that people on Green Hill Beach Road had was not that there were no sidewalks, is that people were driving so fast that they didn't feel safe walking or biking. So there's a correlation there, and same for South Road. There's no sidewalks, no intention for sidewalks, but if people can I'm trying to think of the word, but compelled to drive slower because of design techniques, road design, narrower lanes.
Agree. Yeah, so I think if it didn't come out right, we're saying the same thing.
Okay,
So what I'm essentially saying is there's mutual goals
right.
here, and they're woven,
Yeah.
right? And I think we all agree with that. So I think by investing in one, you're not necessarily discounting the other. I think, like some of if you go and stripe a road, and depending on sharrows, no sharrows, whatever, signage, some low-cost enhancements, you potentially achieve multiple goals.
Yeah.
You've maybe slowed traffic a little bit, because that is a proven technique. and it creates maybe a goal for the BPAC of saying, okay, now we have some defined lanes. I know not all of what you're asking for is sidewalks, and I
Yeah, I think very little of what we're asking for is sidewalks. I think it's really, making connections where there are gaps in sidewalks, or just the maintenance and just clearing the brush away. I mean, that's what got me into BPAC to begin with, was on Old North Road. I mean, nobody wants to hear about it anymore, but it's still an issue. I mean, you still have people walking out in the road because they can't get past, they can't walk on the sidewalk.
Yeah, maintenance is always an issue. We're struggling to keep up. I tell people this, and they're a little bit surprised. I mean, we have about 150 miles of road. We don't maintain all of it. There's many people mow the grass. That helps out a lot. But, we have, 15 guys in highway. 3 are dedicated, they're administrative. 4 are dedicated to the motor pool. So that leaves only 7 or 8, if we're fully staffed, to be out on the roads. And, that's not, when you got one guy running a mower and then you got other guys patching and all the old work, it's just not that. So we'd love to be running two mowers. We only had 2. Well, one of them got destroyed on Middlebridge Road. Okay.
Okay.
So hear me out, Rob.
Yes.
All right, Middlebridge Road, speed feedback signs, white stripes, signage, more signage and striping on that road and paint on that road than any other single road in town. And this person, this young guy, not a young guy, he's not that young, Ryan Spears, young, very nice guy, minding his own business, signage, lights, everything. And this person destroyed that mower in total. So now we're down one. We have one going. We have another one coming, and we're going to try to repair that mower. We'll do it on our own. But so I'm just telling you, it's very difficult for us to keep up.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds like a lot of excuses, but I think our frustration
It is a lot
comes
of
to.
excuses.
Well,
So
It
how
is.
can you help?
understand.
I think that's what you maybe
Yeah.
want to know.
Yes.
I think we're on the same page as regards to, like, it's not like we want to avoid these issues. We'd love to get more funding. We'd love to do more. But it's got to be a priority for the community as well, among other priorities, right? So, if there's advocates that you have and your advocates here, like, if you have recommendations of council, make them heard, all about, like, if you want to communicate to the council, like, we think these things are important in the capital plan, or we want these things added to the capital plan. If they say, you know what, we're in agreement, we need, because we're seeing it. Part of the reason that we're looking at more that carve-out fund is because Jim and I see it as a priority of the council. It's become a priority of the council because it keeps coming up. So now, when we go back for budgeting, we know they'll fund it because they clearly are on the side of, we want this to be addressed, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll move in the direction that they move because we work for the council. So if they say, we want to increase capital funding to pave more roads, or we want to add more sidewalks, or have a striping fund, I think we're all about it. And Jim, Rich, and I have had all those conversations of, if we can increase, because last year, for instance, we only went up a couple % on the capital plan.
Yeah.
But that's because, and they were fighting over, and we still have people standing up. There's an individual
I
who
had
stands
many
up
other
to you.
things in there that we just can't
Yeah.
fund.
Right.
There's individuals who stand up and say, we wanted that 2 cents off the tax rate. And sometimes that's the discussion, and so.
It's like every
yeah.
Sharrow, and I don't know if I can get a test, I don't want to say anything, but.
We're doing the same
every
things.
Sharrow, I receive pricing for all the painting. Every Sharrow cost $85. So when it's a budgetary thing. It's like what gives. So we paint center lines and we paint stop bars and we do all of that, and then everything else kind of gets pushed away. But if and like Luke is saying exactly, is if there's a project that's then my office can certainly move it through the process.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a problem. But it's just getting that money, and something's got to give for that to happen.
Can I just ask about the strategy, or why you would not hire a traffic engineer and have somebody on staff as opposed to all of these consultants, 150 for the road, 110 or whatever it was for Kersey Road. Why don't we have somebody?
I can answer that. I'm going
Okay.
to answer you from professional, because I
Okay.
worked professionally up until just 8 years ago.
Okay.
And what it is when I was working in an office, and I could have gone by myself. I'm a landscape architect. I'm also a civil engineer. I mean, all I need is a surveyor, and I can have a whole company. But it's the depth of design. It's the depth that you have with a firm. When you bring a firm in, they have the checks and balances that are necessary to make sure it's done properly. And I would be very concerned that the staff is stretched out, because we're not just looking at it. We're reviewing soil and erosion control plans, and we're doing all these other things. And any staff member in here just to do traffic, first of all, there wouldn't be enough work just to keep that person busy for traffic. They'd be doing a lot of other things. I mean, I know that you think painting's important, but painting is a very small part of what that person would have to do. But there would be no depth of design. There would be no depth of professional review and all those other things that are required to, do things
It's
in a
pretty
very
typical
careful.
in the industry to hire outside, and it's not a cost factor so much as it is, and to Rich's point, when he says depth, when you hire a firm like a Garofalo or Dupreet or, I don't know who URI is using, but there's dozens of engineers on staff, and so some of these projects can take hundreds of hours of design work. So one person in office doesn't do it. You would need 5 engineers to do, let's say, one project, but when that project ends, there's nothing else. Like, you might have a multi-million-dollar project that you want to do in town, but then what happens when it ends? Then we're out. And we're not a city size. If we're Atlanta or Chicago, you might be at a level where
But
you
even
need on staff.
DOT, when I worked for DOT for a short period, and NAMI was always trying to get a group together to do 3R projects, right? 3R projects. And it never really came together. And I think that has a lot to do with that, because they have other things they need to be doing. And I don't know how you pull together plans like that.
Yeah, at the university, we are fortunate to have a ton of projects going on at any one given point in time. And like, I'll have a building project, they'll have an engineer on staff, and I'm like, we need to do handicap ramps in front of this building. We need to do crosswalks, and then before you know it, I've got a traffic calming set up there. But it's by virtue of having an adjacent, well-funded project with an A&E team right there. And we don't have enough staff to do it in-house either. Over time, because we're in such a compact area, we get a little more comfortable in terms of the types of techniques we use, and it's a smaller area, so it's a little bit easier for us to do on campus.
Yeah. I think just as a member of the public, when I hear that you need to have a design engineer, an engineer to study a crosswalk, it just,
But that's not a $150,000 project.
right.
So what I'm saying, when we hire excavation contractors, let's say, and they're on call. So what we could do in the future, and I've talked to the chief about this, is to have a traffic engineer on call to do small studies. It wouldn't be that type of dollars. That would be
Right.
relatively short dollars.
Yeah.
But they would do those quick studies that we need in order to make the right decision on different things like that.
And DOT does that too. They have traffic engineers on call, and they'll just call out a
Right.
project.
Yeah.
Do an assessment for
That's
small.
a little different.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing a sidewalk, it's not. We're paying $120,000, but they're doing a lot more than just sketching out a plan. They're doing all the permitting. They're doing all the survey. You got to have survey for all of this. We don't have surveyors on staff either.
So Rich, just, where the BPAC might be able to be helpful, you had mentioned that we have a 6-year plan. Likely to change depending on the pavement management plan, but, one of the things that comes to mind is they see a roadway that's gonna be redeveloped in, say, 5 years. It's on your list, right?
Yeah.
If they were to identify that and say, we feel that strongly that, pedestrian enhancements or XYZ needs to be added to the budget, right? It needs to go beyond. I'm gonna take Old North
Perfect
Road,
example
right?
on there is Kenyon Ave.
All right, there you go, Kenyon.
Kenyon Ave is 6 years out. Now would be the time to say, well, what more do we want to do? And Kenyon Ave is a big deal. I mean, it's got the hospital. It ends at Main Street. It begins at Salt Pond. These are two very, very busy areas. And I've even tried to work with the state on getting a three-way stop sign at Salt Pond. They wouldn't hear of it. I mean, because of the ramp there, it just conflicts. They wouldn't hear of it. But so there were little things we were trying to do there. But that would be a great example. So if that was something where you wanted to see more, then we need to talk about that. And then what will happen is in 3 years out, or 2 years out, let's say, I request engineering dollars for traffic calming up and down Canyon Ave. It's gonna require sidewalks. I mean, I'm showing 1.2 million. You know, that's a big deal. Could be a couple years of work.
And the other thing with that, I mean, you can start as far out as, you know, let's say 5 years or 6 years from budgeting. So you might say, we're gonna fund the engineering study over the next 2 years.
Right.
And then we're gonna hire the engineer. Then based on the estimate, we're gonna start accumulating dollars over the following 3 years. And then we'll have enough money ready. That's when the conversations need to be had, is as council's going through the discussions, and we go and we say, listen, we gotta add another $200,000 to the budget this year, because we don't wanna sacrifice everything else to pave Kenyon. Then the discussion happens. But that's when you come in and you say, we really want those improvements. So then the council has two choices. They can cut other projects to afford it, or they can raise the tax rate and raise the money to pay for it. That's completely on them.
Discussion? I don't want to be the only one asking questions.
No, I and this is not a criticism of you, Rich. It's just that the process as it exists right now is to build what we had in the past, as far as roadway maintenance.
No, it's
No,
maintaining
the-
what's existing, and that's what it is. It's
And
not
what we have existing was built in the past, and that's what needs to be
to maintain
to
it.
maintain it.
Right.
So you're maintaining what we had and built a long time ago. It does not address what the need is going forward. So, I mean, the need right now is immediate maintenance. Roads are horrible in certain sections, no doubt about that. It's probably causing car repairs, insurance increases, a whole series of liability issues for the town. And those are being addressed through the maintenance aspect. But it does not address needs going forward. It's what was built for country roads, say some of these were built 40 years ago or so. It does not address the concept of the bicycle use, the pedestrian use. They were back roads, a lot of them, in addressing this. So that is the concept that the town has right now and is budgeting for. And we need to look for the means to get the town to budget for improvements going forward. And where they have allocations, I've been being here for the year or so plus, I keep hearing about the bond funds that haven't been dispensed, and why are they not dispensed when they could be used for improvements necessary? So it's not a criticism of people in this room, but it's a takeaway for this advisory committee, that we have to approach the town council and say, here's what you're doing, and do you want to have progress on what is necessary for the town? Driving around today, I saw sidewalks, they're connected to the other side of the street, that are not ADA compliant throughout town. Is that a liability for the town to not be maintaining roads in that way? How do we pitch to the town council that there are things you should do because there are unforeseen costs that could be coming down the pike regarding what exists now and hasn't been addressed? But you asked for input on
No,
this.
absolutely.
But these are my takeaways, are where do we get the town council and the town to look for the revenues, look for the funds to meet what is needed, not what is as the enhancements, not luxury enhancements, but functional enhancements around town for pedestrians, cyclists, and for commuters are taking public transportation. Again, how many bus stops are on dirt patches with no sidewalk? So there are certain things that we need to, my takeaway for the committee is how to approach the town council and include these going forward.
Is there some way, you know, you want us to look at the roads and provide input, but if the wording is such that you will look at what the needs are for pedestrians and bicyclists to make things safer, if that's already part of your mission of when you're looking at roads and when, I mean, if that's already built in, then we wouldn't have to do that. I mean, if it's already that,
Well,
like,
but explain to me how repaving these roads is not a safety issue for cyclists.
Oh, it certainly is a safety
Okay.
issue. But
But it also explained to me how I am to stripe on a 22-foot wide road, which is most of our roads. I would say a vast majority of our roads are 22 or less.
Mhm.
How I can paint a white stripe on the side of those roads? I can't.
yeah, not all of them, no.
Barely
But if
any
there
of them.
already
Barely any
is
of
a
them.
white line, can you make it, can you make the
No,
road
I can't go
narrow?
10-foot lanes. Oh, no, I can. If the traffic flow is such. But the roads you're talking about have such high traffic flow, I cannot go to a 10-foot lane. It will not. And don't tell me otherwise, Karen. I know you think, but if I'm going to say on South Road, where it's not, we're not talking about urban areas. We're not talking about parking on the side of the road. We're talking about connector roads. I've looked at MUTCD, and I'm not able to figure out how I can safely paint a 10. So I'm just saying that when we pave these roads, we are doing it for safety reasons. No question. So just the maintenance of our roads, safety is built into it. What you're talking about are improvements beyond that. So we're maintaining roads. That's what my job is. It's more than that. I understand. It's what you're talking about. It's that as well. But most often my job is maintaining existing infrastructure, and that includes bridges, dams, all these things that we have. So we have a certain budget amount. Anything beyond that, if you want to add speed tables, if you want to add signage or striping and all those other things, those are things that come as an add-on to that. Right? So and like I'm saying, if we're looking at these roads and the list of these roads that we have, that we've projected, by the way, this could change because now we're doing a pavement management plan. Canyon Ave is a little different because Canyon Ave has got sidewalks end to end, and it is the sidewalks alone are in terrible disrepair. They don't meet ADA, all those different things. So what I'm telling you is those are the types of roads that when they're in the queue, now's the time to look at them. Get the engineering that's necessary, because we have, not only painting, but we have grades to think about because ADA requires certain grades. If we have ADA routes. Generally, if it's existing, we can maintain those grades.
Hi everyone, just want to say hi.
What's up?
Enjoy Italy, Rich.
Thanks.
I'll call you when you're there.
I leave them all.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's engineering involved is what I'm really trying to get at. So I'd like to get that done in advance.
Mhm.
And then we talk about how to get it paid for.
As I said, this was not accusatory when I
No,
started.
I know, but
because I
everybody
agree
thinks
with
that
you
we're
on
not-
the
we're not-
safety from road repaving in that North Road. I know an individual who, because of the potholes and having to ride on the edge to avoid traffic and dodge the potholes, got a concussion because he was riding his bike on that street and it's so dangerous. It rattles your teeth driving a car, but on a bicycle it enhances it. So I understand the safety of improving roads that have conditions like that. That is a safety factor for bicyclists. They don't have to ride as close to the edge and dodge while cars are passing. Agreed. It's these functional enhancements, and that's what I'm saying is the need for where this committee has to come in. Because if your budget is restricted to replicating what is, and there are things like the sidewalks that are not ADA compliant and such, which are pedestrian issues we would advocate for, where the roads are wide enough to accommodate cyclists, that a factor to help with that accommodation as far as striping is included above and beyond the repaving, if you have the capacity to include the
It
concept.
absolutely can be. Just like I'm saying, it's got to be projected out though.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't get dozens of calls about Old North Road while the crews are out there paving. It doesn't work that way. Or if it's even just coming up now, like, or the last section of Old North Road we did, I received dozens of calls saying, "Can you do X, Y, and Z?" It's like, well, no, we can't now. I mean, these roads were in the queue for years. Well, Ken, go ahead. Say what.
It's, honestly, Rich, I think the good news is we're all here to support you and Luke and with the specter of the good town manager, Jim, popping in. That's very much appreciated. We know you're physically constrained, but we're struggling to find that we need to fulfill our purpose. And I think I should just look at Dorothy, because there is true respect for both of you folks. We are a creature, as you've said over and over again, a creature of the council. We're weird, we're strange, we're advisory to the council. We need to advise the council. I'm looking at the goals and objectives. All roads in South Kingston should be free from unsafe conditions, blah, 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 including poor pavement management. We know you're hemmed in. We know you're highly capable. We know that there's a progression to get anywhere of substance that's beyond maintenance. But I also, just as we were starting to talk, I looked at some of my first notes in 2017.
Yeah.
And what we thought we would do with the blessing of the then staff and the then council, is we did our master plan. And we articulated specific areas to focus on. So we're I think, just doing a reboot, and we don't want to be rogue. We don't want to be randomly sending stuff to the council or sending things administratively that are way out of whack with what the manager reasonably can collect from all the various, departments to fund. So there are low to no cost options, and trying to wrangle 10-foot lanes, sure, totally agree. But there could be shadows, and I agree. There's an ongoing obligation there. You can't just stripe it 1 year and let it fade away after 5 years. It's just not, you know what I mean? So we're looking for that tidbit of guidance, so we can collaborate, and we will do our work, and hopefully it won't be so egregious.
Can I suggest one thing?
Yeah.
Is that you have a project. Just saying we need painting in town doesn't give me any direction, doesn't give anybody any direction. Just to say we want to look at the town and paint the whole town doesn't help. Because I'm going to say, well, no.
I don't think we've ever said. We
Well,
want
you're
to
saying
paint the
you
whole
want to.
thing.
I think the richest point though.
But
here-
what I'm saying is if you have a specific road, or from that list would be a good start, even though it could change in a few months. But that doesn't mean that, again, that I have to go with whatever's provided to go. We could say, well, there's a lot more like you if the pavement management plan comes back and says X, Y, and Z are the single worst roads in town, you need to do these. Well, there may be other reasons why we might want to do a different road. And it might be because maybe we want to have sidewalks, or maybe we want to do those other things. So those are things that I need to know. And then what I can do is I can get that into the 6-year plan. And then also say, now I want us to get the engineering going for that. That's the way it really needs to work. But it needs to be a project. It can't be.
And I'll give you, for instance, right, here's a good example. We're building a nice shiny high school. We've talked about Columbia, School Street. The fact that School Street in Columbia, there's a necessary neck down there, and there's some issues there. So that is one on the horizon, right? 3 years, we're gonna have a brand new high school, and we need to deal with that traffic in the area. I think to Rich's point, I would look, the reason I mentioned the 6 years, and I respect, Kenny's take on this, and I wasn't here in 2017. In the master plan, I think, put out broadly a lot of, and with some specifics, but it's a lot for the council to digest. And when they're looking at this, I brought this number up for a reason. This is a total capital 6-year plan, $206 million. We fund about $2 million per year. Do the math. Now, I'm going to caveat this, that 150 million of this is a school project, so take that off top, so 56 million. But still, do the math. So they're also thinking in their head, should be, while I support this, they're saying it's a need, it's actually a want, because there's a lot of true needs, right? They need to fund the departments, they need to fund cars, they need to fund buildings and services and all the things we provide. So I think by picking off, like looking at that long plan, working with Rich and saying, okay, which roadways could we be effective on? And then lobbying for those over time and kind of going in lockstep, I think would be more effective. If there's smaller improvements that we can weave into the shorter term plans that you feel, we'd have to dialogue on that, but I don't think we're against it. It's just the fact that we need to fund the initial cost, and then we have to be able to build in the other cost. And we don't want to sacrifice, we don't want to backtrack everything else, right? I don't want to sacrifice a truck that they need because they got to now afford roadway striping. I want to add that cost into the budget, not subtract something else, ideally, right? Now, sometimes we get hit with stuff and they say, I don't care, make it magically happen, right? Noise Farm last year was one, all of a sudden we got hit with one of the council members like, I want Noise Farm done, and that's that, right? So we had to find the money, we had to figure it out. And we did, but something had to get cut to pay for that. So that's what we're trying to avoid. We just don't want to backtrack on all the other needs that we know, because if he has to then take a roadway off that's full of potholes to then pay for the roadway striping or the new signage or whatever, and I'm being extreme here, I understand it doesn't cost that much, but it could be. And so we just don't want to slide backward, on another roadway that needs to be done.
What is a site that you have your greatest interest? Like, what is a place where you say, man, this has got to be different?
Well, I mean, years ago, we articulated, I think it was Columbia, Main Street, Kersey Road.
Kersey Road could happen. So.
Yeah.
But by the way,
I think that was like 3 or 4 years ago.
By the way, I gotta request funding for that.
Yeah.
But that's one you could lobby for. I mean, we got engineering in place.
Yeah, the engineering's done.
Yeah.
It'll be done.
But that one's going to be a big one.
And I think.
But
let
let me caveat that though, that Kersey Road's being done, but it's not traffic calming. It is just a sidewalk.
No, and I think that's
pedestrian safety.
That's huge.
Well, it's huge. Oh no, I think it's huge. I'm just saying, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the
So
tables and all that. It's not all that. It's
the speed feedback signs. Like,
No.
what do those cost?
well,
Isn't that
the,
like
the
75?
PD, the PD was taking care of that, and it was about $7,500.
Okay. So, and then the
And they'll
cost.
be monitoring those and doing all that. They're going to manage those.
Right, and this is to help people, besides speed feedback signs, in your estimation, what are the types of things that we can do to slow traffic, to calm traffic? What are they? Because
I
that's,
question that. I mean, I don't personally want speed bumps everywhere.
no, I don't either.
And,
What about
but I'm just afraid. I'm going to tell you what I want.
What do you want?
What do you want?
What do I want?
What do you really, really want? What do you want? Okay, I'm sorry.
I want to have a traffic engineer look at criteria that we could use to institute speed bumps. But I want a list of what the road needs to have in order to even be qualified for a speed bump. Because speed bumps do reduce speed. There's no question. But I want to see an actual criteria. And the reason is because, you guys may think they're important in one sense on certain roads, but every single neighborhood in this town has asked for them. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to see them all over town, because then you will destroy it. Then what will happen is we will be removing them from everywhere in town. Mm-hmm. That's what will happen. They'll overdo it, but if we have specific locations that were developed because of a certain criteria, 3,000 linear feet, that type of thing. Certain width of road, certain parameters. I want somebody to tell me what those are, and then I want to move forward with a plan so that people then the neighborhood could say, listen, we really want this. We'd say, well, listen, you don't really, you're on a curve, you got all these curvy roads, it's not really gonna work.
So-
I had a cul-de-sac, 1,000-foot cul-de-sac, insist we put speed bumps in, and it was off of Glen Rock Road. My God, and it was really coming down to my neighbors drive too fast. And that's what I want to avoid. You know, I want some of these roads, Middlebridge Road, I mean, it's bad.
What do you think that would cost to hire an engineer?
I
to
don't
do
think, I
that?
think it's relatively short dollars.
Is it
Is this the
We'll
case
talk
of
about it at
Is
Capitol.
this the
We'll
case
talk
of
about it.
where you talked about having a standby traffic engineer?
Yeah, it would be the same category. Someone to just help us develop a criteria for
And
instituting
the
these.
town
I talked to
doesn't
the chief
have a-
about this as
The
well.
town doesn't have a relationship with a traffic engineer.
No, we would have to hire a consultant, but we could do that. I mean, I've got a list of consultants that we can work with, and I've already talked with one that say, yeah, we can help you on something like that. I mean, we've already tried to think about this, how we're gonna do it, because it's coming.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to look forward and say, listen, it's coming. I mean, composting is another one. I mean, I've got a gal now that's our recycle coordinator, and she is very big with composting, and the reason why I wanted her, because I can see it coming. Composting is a big
Is
deal.
that
It's the same
something
thing.
that we could ask, that BPAC could ask or make a recommendation that the town council provide funding for a traffic engineer to evaluate the viability
I
of?
think we're coming in with funding for that, right? Or is that part of?
Yeah, I think that's actually a perfect use of the money for the bond.
But that would be something you could advocate for, like, we need support of, you know, we're intending to do it. I mean, now, Rich has let the cat out of the bag. We're discussing, part of the criteria is that when people come in, what's happening now is the cat's a bit out of the bag. Green Hill, Fairgrounds Road, Liberty Lane. We're getting more and more groups who are frustrated with the traffic, who are banging either on Rich's door or the chief and saying, we need something done.
Council.
And what happens is they go directly to council. So the council then has to decide whether they wanna, I don't wanna call it arbitrary, but they now they say, chief, we want you to explore this, right? So the squeaky wheel is getting the grease while there's many others who might be frustrated. So we need to create a process that is a process, much like the state has a process, right? Where people can come in, not have to go to council, but with objective criteria, then a group can sit down and say, all right, what level can we go to? And then, do we have the money or do we not right now? And if we don't have the money, how do we get money in the cycle and bring it to council in such way that it could be funded? But that objective criteria is, you know, Rich has advocated for this, and it is extremely important because otherwise it's just whoever
Yeah,
thinks
and then
their
we will-
roadway
we
is the
will-
most
We
important.
will ruin it for everybody.
Yep.
Right. Have you, I was just up
That's
in.
one possibility,
What's that?
that it could ruin it for everybody. You know,
If we had them all over town, Ken,
no, I don't
get
think.
one council in here.
And I don't think
they would
anybody
say, I
would
want
do-
them all
I
gone.
don't think, you know, there's like
Because then you get
zero
complaints about the bumps.
There's zero, and then there's like you blanket the whole town with speed bumps. I don't.
Well, who
We
gets-
should. I think what would be interesting is I could support. You know, if you want to have some criteria, basically the criteria is already in design manuals. But if you want to customize it South Kingston, that would make sense. If we then said, and here's like one or two streets where, like, if we pre-contemplated it, say, all right, this is limited, right? It's not some crazy long road where you put one in and they're going to want 18 of them. Like maybe if you couple it with a specific example, like you had asked for, like a project. Give us a
And
project.
I agree that would be the right way to go, to say, listen, we're gonna institute on these 3 roads, but it will not stop there.
Well,
What will happen is every neighborhood will go in and say,
It did it in Cranston. It was all stop signs. There wasn't speed tables, but Cranston.
stop signs.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
every
So
intersection is stop
important.
signs.
Well, I mean, I think speed bumps, I mean, it's one thing like Green Hill, it's just going down and coming back. But sometimes speed bumps can then drive people on other roads instead of cutting through. Because there's speed bumps, they'll go a different way.
Well, so
Definitely.
Like-
a perfect example is if you go from Point Judith, and I said this before, if you go from Point Judith to the tower, and you go Point Judith Road, Route 1 to the tower, you encounter, I think it's 14 or 15 traffic lights. If you go Ocean Road, Middlebridge Road, it's 2. and one of them's a right-hand turn. You know, I mean, there's a problem there, and the state has pushed all these cars onto our roads.
Yeah.
They've made it easier to travel all these other roads. You know, and I'm not sure how to handle that.
Yeah, because I don't want to keep you because you've got a big travel day tomorrow. Now that we know, and we can discuss this, further.
So I think to surmise, I guess, is what I would request of this group is to tell me what that project is, right? And then I'll pull together, and Ken can certainly do it, but just what do we think we need to get this done? And I can confer with you on that, and we can talk a little bit more and say, okay, what do we need? And at least we get a project going. That would be helpful.
When we bring in consultants, engineering consultants, and they're looking at roads, does the town get sort of total control on input of what the priorities are for that road? Or do the engineers sort of just say, hey, we've looked at it and this is what we think should happen?
We can say what we want.
Okay.
And they can confirm that it'll be safe and good, and they can do all of that part of it. So if we come in and we say we want X, Y, and Z, they will design that for us in a safe manner, and also, but the part of that is they put it into construction documents that we can actually bid to a contractor to build, and that's a big part of it too. That's the part that is difficult for in-house to do. It's just
I appreciate your recommendation for the specifics. I think as an advisory committee, maybe we can divvy up the villages in town and come back with specifics by village rather than everybody trying to police the whole town.
Well, I would also couple it with something that we have to maintain that's on that edge though, too. I mean, because I'm more inclined to want to.
In relation to the maintenance list.
I'm just suggesting that because I thought that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
You're talking about my capital. I'm saying
Right.
my capital deals a lot with maintenance, right?
Right.
I'm not looking for outside projects because I've only got dollars for maintenance. So if you want to couple it with one of those roads, and you want to go beyond what my maintenance would be, which would be just reclaim the road and put it back where it is.
Yeah, I think what we're saying, it's more effective if you pick an existing project, it's on the radar.
Okay.
Because if you start just adding another project, like we know the need as far as, like, there's an expectation that the potholes get filled. And at roadways, like, we heard, we're lucky enough to get the state in to do Kingston Road and a few of the others that have been terrible. But when they get in that condition, our biggest complaints come from the condition of the roadways. So it's easier for us to sell, okay, we already had this in the pipeline. The roadway has to get done anyway. Perfect time to look at other enhancements, right? And we have advocates who, or we have an advisory group who's really pushing for improvements to this roadway at the perfect time that we're gonna be in there anyway. We just need a boost in funding to get it done. That's gonna be our most effective way to get these projects done.
So that's our role to advise and advocate.
So if you want, I'll come back next
Purposes
month if you want to talk
and-
more, if you think more.
That would be good.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
We'll keep it
Have you
rolling.
seen, I was just up in upstate New York. They had on this one college campus, they had not humps, they had dips. Have you ever seen those?
No.
Oh my
That'd be
God, it
horrible.
was so much more effective than
Yeah?
a speed hump.
That's
It was a
upstate New
dip.
York?
It was in, Troy.
How did they plow that?
I don't know.
I think you
Well, they
gotta
just,
think
I don't
about
know.
it.
I don't know, there's a lot of
Essentially, I
drainage
mean, your
issues.
plow
There are ways
does
to get
drop,
around
it's a
it.
weight plow, so as long as it's not
I'm-
too extreme, your plow
It was
will
very,
go
and they
down
put,
well.
it was like one and about 40 feet above, there was 1, 2,
It's like speed dips.
1, 2.
You go down and then you stay down and you go up.
No,
and
no,
up?
you go down, you go, it's a dip.
Just an inverse bump, yeah.
And then you drive straight, and then so you don't have a chance to
I have
speed up
multiple
again.
cars I have 2 cars that are this far off.
Yeah,
the
that's,
ground.
no, but that's about what it is.
A sports car?
I wouldn't
No,
even
I-
be able to drive it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, well,
I mean, it's
Control the
interesting.
fun out of
I mean,
I just
yeah,
wondered, I
I've
mean, this
never
is a
seen
different
it.
kind
Now I
of
can avoid it.
technology
But
that I'd
now
never
you
seen
say it,
before.
it's not really that far-fetched. I mean, people, when they hit it.
I'm telling you, it was effective.
And they'll call and say, can you fix that pothole on my street?
Exactly.
So I'm gearing up for
Why fix them? We'll just keep them.
CIP, and, I could certainly get something in there for the 6-year.
Okay.
Okay.
So can I
Into next year to maybe do some engineering.
also say, I just want to sort of reframe, we want to focus on the CIP, And then help for criteria for instituting speed bumps.
Well,
Or do you
no,
want that
maybe
as part
not.
of your
No,
thing?
maybe not that,
Yeah.
because that, we're
Okay.
gonna try to manage, to
That's
try.
just
It's a
the-
broader
That's,
effort.
I'm just suggesting that's a reason why we might bring in an engineer.
Okay,
And so let us do that.
okay.
We're working on that framework to figure out how we take in requests and process and evaluate. So that's something that's on our.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Have fun. Send us a postcard.
See you, Rich. Have fun.
Yeah,
Very good.
Jeff. Thank you.
all right, thank you, guys, we'll see you.
And so this is on our website. If you go to the main site, I'll actually backtrack here a little bit. So if you go under government and you go down to budget documents and meeting schedule under town council, there's the different fiscal years of budget. So this is the latest and greatest. And then we have our operating budget. There's multiples because there's the town manager's initial budget. Now, once it goes through a cycle, the town council can revise it and do things, and then we have a final budget program. But the capital improvement program is here. We just have it in the Clear Government link. You can print it out. But this is interactive. So if you go under capital improvements, you can see the 1-year plan, or you can see the multi-year plan. So what I had brought up was the multi-year plan, which shows the overall 6 years. And so you can look, it gets more and more granular. You can click on these, but if you scroll down, you can see like each department, what they have. So audiovisual replacement, fiber ring replacement, these are all capital requests. Planning department, facilities, but by far the largest ones tend to be police, parks and rec, and DPS, because of the nature of what they deal with.
So one of my questions would be, and I may have not heard this correctly at all, is we could, for some of the traffic calming, not necessarily rely on DPS only, but the public safety department could do things like speed feedback signs, RFBs, just a little bit of.
Well, no, and
just
I'll be honest with you,
certain
like
things, just
this is a discussion I have to have with the chief, because the discussion I had with the chief was that we weren't gonna be putting these feedback signs under the police department. The data would go to them, but the maintenance would stay with DPS. Now, I don't know if, I gotta talk to Jim about if that changed, but the request, as far as the plan, we would parse out where that goes and who gets to, I'm still in debate with the police department, who's gonna control that, because we need to maintain these things. So, and the more we get, we can't maintain them in-house. So the problem is they get vandalized. And we've had multiple instances. Broad Rock's not working. For last I checked, it wasn't working.
Right.
Because they'll throw rocks at it, somebody gets up there, yanks on the wiring or whatever, and then we've got to go, and they're expensive to fix. So that's another aspect of this, like while we invest in the capital end of it, we've got to figure out how to fund the long-term maintenance. And the more we have, the more there is to maintain. So, but I'm sorry, yes, in general, I would say, I wouldn't relegate it to public safety. I would say more of it falls on the DPS because they're roadway infrastructure. But whatever the request is, you don't have to get in the weeds on it so much as what is the request,
So
But-
so it could be various departments, such as if there's something that is, something that the rec department may feel like it, or we feel like it could be for that, or DPS, or public safety.
School.
There are options, school. There are options other than just throwing it all onto Rich and having him feel like he's overwhelmed by everything that we ask.
Maybe. I wouldn't worry so much about that. What I'm more concerned about, because they sit in kind of the higher tier on that, is what Jim and I worry about is the bigger piece of the pie, right? What is the total budget and how that's portioned out, right? Because we want to make sure we're upgrading parks and we're still doing roads and we're still investing in our buildings. And so every year we're looking at that plan saying, all right, who gets a piece of that pie? And it's not easy. They're all the directors are like in the arena fighting for their piece, right? So, we have budget meetings. When we formulate the capital plan, we bring every single director to a table. We go through their capital plan. There's times that I'll make a suggestion, Jim makes a suggestion. To give you, for instance, I was a big advocate of redoing all the rails on the bridge over in Wakefield because they were, the paint was flaking off them and the fences were starting to fall down. And I said, this is stuff we need to start paying attention to. So it's kind of a grinder process. So I guess my point to you is I wouldn't worry as much about the departments and who you're burdening. We're worried about what is the request you want to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And then we can figure out how to get it there. Ultimately, the only direction we need from council is, you say, hey, we want Kenyon done, and we really think X, Y, and Z should be done, and the council says, yes, we want that done. Okay, we'll figure it out. That's enough.
Can you bring up on here the one of the road improvement projects? Okay, just any. Okay, so Kenyon Avenue. Okay, so just click on that so we can see all the wording that's there. Okay, so here, description, and it's the same thing on every one of them. Okay, so then you follow that down. Proposed improvements in this.
So he puts the linear fee.
Okay, so anyway, presently a list of municipal, I wanted to add to the description. Oops. Yeah.
No, that's,
I just wanted to include in the description there, where it says, I guess this looks a little different. Somewhere in there that the safety needs of pedestrians and bicyclists will be considered and low and no cost safety improvements will be implemented in road maintenance projects as needed on each one of them, so that it's in there.
I know what you're saying, but that's not what we're proposing.
Right, so, but to your point, right?
But nobody's, in the whole capital improvement program, there's very, very little that has to do with pedestrian or crosswalk or anything. It's just, those words do not appear.
To your point, and we've had these discussions for many, many years, almost coming on 10 years. So prior to Rich, the previous pavement management agency had generic language and it said, based on an engineering study. It wasn't an engineering study. It was an assessment of the physical condition of the asphalt, and Rich, kind of re-articulated that just a moment ago. So I think what's inadvertently hidden here is that roadways are not just for vehicles; they're for pedestrians, they're for bicyclists. The school committee policies require students to walk to school. They're not assumed to be walking in the roadway. They're assumed to be walking on safe sidewalks. So I think there's an opportunity for enhancement of communication of what's actually being done. Nobody's disputing what you and Richard physically constrained to do. It's pavement management. But all of these other opportunities are going by the wayside. And I think unless you really dig deep into it, the public's not seeing it. We don't have any, say for what it's worth, faith or confidence in the council to absorb this massive amount of information at a public meeting,
Right.
and be able to, on their feet, just kind of go through all those details and then parcel out a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. That it's almost impossible. It is impossible. It hasn't happened in the 20 years I've been trying to advocate for this stuff. So there's a gap in communications. We definitely understand you are proposing certain things. They are absolutely aligned with maintenance, and you are providing guidance for us for opportunity for a program. Give us 1 or 2 projects, and we'll try to program in the engineering to get there eventually. But overall, in the overall program, if the casual observer just picks this up, there's a lot of information missing. These roads are not, you're not addressing the pedestrians intentionally, because you don't have money to do it. But if you look at the council's goals and objectives, you'd think otherwise. You'd think that, the council they are supportive of these things, but the council's not putting the money into those categories either. I don't know how.
I think they're supportive. It's not in their top 5 goals and objectives for this year, right? I hear what you're saying. I'm simply stating that, and Ken's exactly right. We look at it as it's a pavement management program. So what we're explaining here is that is what we have, right? That is what we think we can manage. You're absolutely right in that there is not a good system other than Rich saying, boy, I'm sure there's many times Rich says, boy, I'd like to build new sidewalks on this road. But he peels back and says, but the reality is I got 50 other roads to pave, and if I do sidewalks on here, I'm gonna have to sacrifice 2 of them this year. So then what does he do? He makes the choice. I run a pavement management program. So I hear you. I think, Ken, what you're alluding to is we don't have another step in the process, right? Where we say, let's say 5 years in advance, we tell the public, listen, we're taking input on roadways that we're planning for 5 years from now, and we want to hear from the public. And if you have any wants, needs, get them in now because we need to plan 5 years out, right? And I think that's kind of what we're saying, and we are in those discussions and trying to figure this out. I think it ties into the traffic, the speed issues, like picture, and we've talked about this, there used to be an advisory committee on roadways, to the TTRC, that, using some of the traffic engineer, right, maybe they're on call, using kind of a panel, it would be more of a, all right, we got this request, and maybe as part of that, we're putting out proactively to the community saying, listen, we have these roadways out, like as part of our pavement improvement plan. If you have comment, you have requests, tell us now. Then when we bake up our capital plan, the verbiage you're talking about then gets woven in, because it's like, based on that community comment, we're now building a budget for more.
When you
But if
say
you-
community comment, are you talking about us?
I'm talking about all community comment, because it's not just BPAC that we're hearing from. We're hearing from all
Right.
neighbors, right? You don't live on the street. The most interested party is the person who lives on that street, right? So they need to be involved. So, I respect your roles, but, the truth is you don't live there. Like, somebody lives on that roadway, just like you live on Old North, right? So, huh?
It doesn't do any good.
So that's my point being is that this venue has been difficult to operate in, right? Because the BPAC has a different role in general. It's not just looking at roadways, it's looking at kind of a broader thing. It's not just about a roadway at a time. What I'm saying is, if you had that group, then the people on that roadway, if you live on Kenyon, Kenyon's coming up in 5 years, there's a notice put out, and there's constituent advocacy for certain things to be on that roadway. Then we can go to council and say, listen, we've had a hearing on this. There was a lot of people who came out, they want whatever, sidewalks, crosswalks, whatever it is. We built the budget around that. If you want to cut it, you can, but we built the budget based on what the community desires were. So we get our piece of it, which is we're doing our job as a pavement management plan. We're building a budget based on what the community wishes are. Then it falls on the council to decide if they want to fund it or they want to fund it, right? Right now, it's one way. I get that. Ken's absolutely right. We have a pavement management plan, that's it, because that's the way we're built. Like, we have limited capacity, we're built to maintain road, that's our task. What I'm saying to you, Dorothy, is I can't put that language in now because it gives a false, it's not correct.
But it's like as needed, or as, but put it
That's
in
not
there.
what we're proposing, right? It's a pavement, what he's proposing under this funding strategy is just a pavement management plan. That's it. There is no other. Like,
So we
that-
need,
that
what do we
budget
need, a
is
separate,
shown.
we need to ask for separate funding for,
It sounds like we need to work backwards from the future projects and make sure the language is included in those projects where they've done the appropriate work to factor in the necessary bicycle and pedestrian. To say he's gonna do it in this coming year when he clearly doesn't have it, that's where I get where you're saying it would be misrepresenting rather because he's not including.
so, but Kenyon Avenue, let's just take Kenyon Avenue. We know that's coming down the pike. I'm not am I gonna be walking and biking that road and everybody here walking and biking that road and saying, oh, we need a curb, we need a ADA here, we needed the, no, it, right? I mean, is that what he's asking? Is
Well,
that
no.
what you're
So,
asking,
what
that we provide?
No, let me, I gotta back up here. Let me
Okay,
take it.
help me out, Ken.
I think this is where I struggle, and sometimes I'm sorry if I don't communicate well, but I think this may help clarify. If you look at the screen, this is one of your primary charges. Promote a systematic method for ongoing citizen input into the development of important circulation policies, plans, and projects, right? I've said this before. A systematic method is a process. It's not about you recommending anything. It's not about you and your wishes and desires. It's creating a methodology so others can provide input and we create a process together that works, right? So what I'm outlining is I've been brainstorming and in talking with Rich and the chief and others, a methodology by which we could take input, right? In a systematic way, based on the roadways that we know have to get done. So we know there's a roadway, I'll bring it back to Columbia again, the roadway is gonna have to get done. So when we're looking at that on the out plan, we have a method so that way, which we don't have now, for people to provide input early in the process. And then we can take that and with some validity and some data, meaning that people have requested, that we can again go to the council and say, we typically come to you with just a pavement plan. And that is gonna be the baseline. If nobody advocates, we don't hear anything, that's what we're going forward with. But if we hear other requests and we feel like that is something that needs to be brought forth, we can do it. But then the council also has that voice as well. Like they're gonna be expecting that, that they need that. Because otherwise, they also are tasked to maintain and do the need, which the true need is pavement, right? Maintain the roads.
So okay, so are we hosting public outreach?
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, but tell me how
That's
we
So-
provide this
So I'll get to that part.
ongoing.
So my suggestion, and again, I don't run the group, but I've been trying to sway you guys in this direction previously, is support a methodology.
Give me an example. I don't know what you're talking about.
I just gave you a whole method. I just gave you a whole example of a process.
Oh.
That doesn't exist, right?
Are
You
we
could
sending
advocate
out
for that
cards?
process.
How are we communicating?
No.
Getting the.
What did I say earlier? It's not about BPAC. It's not about you facilitating process. It's about advocating for the process.
So we're trying to so the process is,
Are you
Just
getting
tell
what I'm
me.
saying?
No, I'm not. And
what-
I'm a communicator. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know how I'm not getting this across.
Help me.
I'm a little lost it.
So if you want, if
Don't
put
just
it-
tell me
to
what
put it
you
in blatant
think.
terms, I'll just say, reestablishing if this group said, we're recommending to the council that you create a TTRC type board that would, staff board that would take in input, and here's the process by which people could put input into that board to evaluate projects as part of the capital planning.
It's
I know.
it's another layer. It's another.
It's not another layer because your group is, I'm saying this respectfully, your group is not the traffic commission. Your group is a bike pedestrian advisory commission. You can advocate whatever you want. You can send whatever you want. But what I'm saying is the real methodology has to come through more of a staff process because you're a part-time board.
Why don't you do that? Why don't you create this
I'm
technical
trying.
review? Why don't you go to the town council and say this is what we need?
I'm not saying we won't.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, I'm working on that direction. What you're asking me what I need. I need support to get over the hump on this. Like things don't magically appear, right? If we're gonna go to a different process, that also may mean more money that the council has to allocate, right? So as these projects come up, that's part of it.
When the BPAC was created, we had a supportive council. This council by their actions, hasn't supported BPAC like outwardly. I mean, they acknowledge us, are very kind. They always listen to us. They receive our reports, but it's very, very different from the initial leadership. And the initial leadership in 2017 didn't have the specter of $150 million escrow bond. They did, but they were dodging it, and they delayed it to the next
You
guy.
did a good job.
So I mean, the dynamic has changed, and I mean, I honestly, I don't know. With the BPAC committee charge, I think if we can rally, I've heard bits and pieces of things, or I've heard everything, but I've heard, I'm keying on bits and pieces. If we have some suggestions, we go back to Luke and Rich with as far as tangible. What about these areas, these roads, these streets? That's a means to help these folks contemplate advocating for money. We still have a role to advise the council, and you know it's sad because it's just a couple months after your budget was passed, you're planning for next year's budget. All right, you have to.
Oh my God, yeah, we're already into it.
And I feel for you guys because we do the same thing at a state level. The cake gets baked in terms of the budget. They're constrained right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets warm
So-
here, doesn't it?
So
yeah,
the
it's unfortunate. It's so loud.
yeah, okay. So for Old North Road, just because
Yeah.
I got an alert 5 days before they started paving, just to let me know that I could be back. The traffic could be backed up. Did anybody get any kind of alert? The people that lived along that road, because as far as I know, that they didn't. But do you think people were alerted that there was going to be a pavement project on their road? A card in the mail, anything?
Well, I can't speak to what Rich did in advance. What I can tell you is probably most people didn't necessarily, who aren't familiar with capital,
Okay.
who don't follow council,
Okay.
who don't track anything,
So-
probably didn't know.
So I'm in line with you. I was thinking the same thing. If we have a 5-year plan and a systematic process to promote public engagement regarding those plans, would be notification from the town, and this is what we would recommend to town council, notification a sufficient time in advance to allow the incorporation of any engineering required. So that would be a promotion of a systematic process that.
Neil, you're starting to pick up what I'm throwing down.
At 3 years prior to any project, public input be sought through notifications to people within a certain corridor of that work project.
That is a start of a process plan, right?
And isn't that?
Yes.
So we could advise on the governance and the promotion of public input.
I'm trying to engage
Well,
you in this
I-
process. I know I could come up with it. I know that. But that doesn't mean you'll like it. See, here's the problem. I may come up with something you don't like or you don't agree with, right?
It's something.
I'm looking for you to drive the process.
All right, you got it.
Fair?
Alrighty.
And I have one question before, because you were saying, oh, look at the item 5 years out. Why so far out?
Honestly, it's
What does it take
because
as far as engineering study time frame and proposals and putting out for bids? Why a 5-year time frame? What would be the minimal time frame for that to be engaged?
yeah, so typical capital improvement plan, different communities vary, but it's usually 6 or 7 years. Some of that's based on kind of accounting standards and how, recommended standards of outlook. But to be quite honest is that we need to look at budgets that far out. Like we need to figure out where we're gonna be in 5 or 6
You
years.
gotta look at resources and needs.
We project 5 or 6 years out, but to Rich's point, we're always making, and I don't know how URI does it. Do they have I'm assuming they have a capital plan.
Yeah, we do the same thing.
So,
State agencies, they'll do the
This
same
is
thing.
common practice, so, it's really to predict, you adjust as you go, based on how, who knows what the market does, anything else. But it's so you always have stuff on the boards and outlook and saying, okay, what are our needs versus the money, quite frankly. And sometimes it also drives, and I was talking to Dorothy a little bit about this earlier, this pavement management plan will be useful because it may project that we have $60 million worth of just pavement that needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's critical within the next 10 years.
Mhm.
We won't be able to afford that. So it may tell us, hey, you may need to go to bond. You may not be able to bond now, but when the interest rates went down to sub 1%,
Mhm.
that would have been the perfect time to borrow, right? So there, you have to be prepared at those times when you can capture the money and get projects done. So there's various purposes why you want to project out in that time frame.
You're projecting for funding is effectively what you're projecting.
Primarily for funding
But
purposes.
I'm talking about the execution of one of these projects. What is you've got something here for fiscal year 2020. Why are we looking at 31? Why not 29 when we're giving proposals here? Why so far out? Town council that we currently have will be gone. The ability to approve these will be gone. Why was the ask initially put to us to look at Kenyon Avenue, which is out in 2031, 2030? Why not 29 or 28?
Because we need the time, like if you're providing input, right? Let's just take Kenyon. Let's say the input is we want an additional, all these other improvements, and that's gonna be another $500,000 beyond pavement maintenance, right? So we put in for pavement maintenance. We need to know that well in advance because we may have to hire an engineer. So we might, to my earlier discussion, we might have to wait, we may have to fund an engineer over 2 cycles and then hire the engineer, and that takes time. You can attest to that. We gotta get plans back, we gotta get estimates back, and then based on those estimates, we also have to count for inflation because it's gonna take 3 more years to build the project. So then, based on that, we can say, okay, now we need to fund the project over the next 3 years, right? We wanna give enough time so it's not a shock, because if it's more money, it's a bigger shock. It's a time calculation.
Well, that's what I was asking about okay, here's the under consideration. What's the engineer time frame? What's the plan time frame? And then
There's no prescribed. It could go faster. I mean, you can get a project typically baked in a couple of years, depending on the size of the project. But because of the funding aspect, it takes significantly longer, because it's not like we have the money in the bank. It's more of a financial planning thing than it is an actual technical plan.
So the least impactful, just as far as what I'm trying to advocate here, is rather than just focusing on the largest one out there, what about the smaller incremental preceding that, where I see a $20,000 project, a $50,000, the scale?
It could be anything on that list. I think the
Approaching
process-
those for prioritization too, assessing them, not just, hey, let's look 6 years out right now, let's look at a smaller near term.
It could be anything on the 5-year, what I suggested was look at that 5-year outlay. And I'm not saying that's the only thing you look at, like, again, come up with a process. It might be for whatever people want too,
Well,
to be added.
But I think to your point, Neil, and again, I being here at the inception, I've always, every year, I always look at the entire network of streets, and based on the preliminary or the earlier work we did for the master planning, we know the villages, we know the connector roads, we know the bike paths, but you can't ride on at night anymore. And we can just kind of look at it and just slowly just kind of talk about it, and just didn't take a long time, and say, yeah, okay, we get it. These 1 or 2 roads, we did it earlier this year. It was a Glenrock Road. We're like, yeah, whatever. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's beautiful. I love it. I went out there to buy some pottery, literally like 3 weeks ago. But it's like, yeah, we can take a buy in that. That's fine. But here's, Pond Street. Here's, all these other roads, and my goodness, these are great opportunities. What we do on campus, we've done a ton of paving this year. We redid all of our speed tables. We changed them. I took feedback from the fire departments, and we modified them. So the engineering was 3 months, and then we immediately went out to bid, and we're all done. We're all done. All of Ranger Road, all of the Memorial Union Traffic Circle, all of Flag Road. So it's a scale, right? So that's why we've always been advocating. It's kind of just food candy or just word candy. It's just low to no cost, right? We're not trying to do the deep dive on significant engineering projects, because we know that's gonna be the 2, 3, 4, 5-year poke. But I guarantee you, every year, there's gonna be a pavement reclamation or just an overlay project where, yeah, there's some low to no cost options, and the engineering burden is not large. I did hear Rich say he'd have a high degree of confidence in his ability to push out traffic calming measures if he had some seed money, maybe 1 or 2 projects as an example, so he could have some internal screening to do. And if that's what it takes, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we want to wrap up the CIP discussion?
So we jumped to, just so from my own head, we jumped to which agenda item?
Well, we've only been on 7A. That's all we talked about. And so there were a couple of things where we said, well, BPAC could ask. I mean, we can ask the town council for, but go ahead.
So if it's on 7A, I thought it was. So what I heard Rich be supportive of is some seed money for some engineering criteria for traffic calming measures. I would just say that broadly instead of getting particular.
Yeah.
Speed humps, speed dips, speed tables, traffic, feedback signs, whatever it is. I think that makes sense. That's one thing that we talked about earlier.
But as far as a motion to do something, we've heard about it, but it sounded like we are not to touch that. That's something that you and Rich are working on as far as getting the funding.
My suggestion, to be direct to that, is we have to live in both worlds, right? So we have to, and we need to hear from Rich, but we also have to advise the council.
Okay.
And my suggestion would be to take the thing that Rich had talked about, that's one item
Okay.
that may help him put some seed money into his draft budget, his pro forma budget, to the town manager, which may come out at the back end later on this fall. That's one element. And then we talked for an hour about many other things. We wafted in and out of various themes of how we can structure ourselves or structure the TTRC in the future. But as this is specifically recommendations for the 2026 SIP, I would say definitely we should be supportive of Rich and some metrics on traffic calming measures. We should support that. That's important.
Is that something that we support via a recommendation to the town council? I mean,
I'd be daring and say that we are advisory to the council.
Yeah.
So if we don't adhere to our charge, then it's a shame on us. But whatever else everybody wants to do is fine with me. It doesn't mean that we can't, certainly that we shouldn't communicate with Luke and the town manager and Rich on it as well. I think we ought to.
I heard 3 things. I heard that engineer funding for an engineer to evaluate viability criteria for speed bumps,
This is a
customized
traffic calming.
traffic calming. Okay, let's do that.
Box or something.
Yeah, I know. I didn't like that. That's why I was wondering. Traffic calming. Okay. I heard potentially request an increase in funding for painting. That was at the very beginning. He has $20,000 a year for painting. If we want more, but as was said, well, then you have to carry it on every year. So I don't know if that's something we want to ask the town council for. And the third thing was to ask the town council to require some kind of alert X number of years out to people that live along a certain road that there's a pavement management project coming along.
So the last 2 items you mentioned, I don't know that they're directly related to the SIP. I agree with your summary. Makes
Okay.
sense to me. But I'd say if we're as a committee advisory to the council we're picking and choosing our battles. I mean, Rich needs to advocate for striping. Of course, we want him to have all the money he wants and needs, of course.
Yeah.
And in the process, this is the tippy toe thing where I agree with that one suggestion Luke made. That's one possible outcome. That's really driven by staff. They're going to administer this. We're theoretically going to phase ourselves out. And at some point in time, there's a complete streets ordinance, there's this, there's that, there's funding, and they figured it out.
That's where I want to get.
Right, we shouldn't.
That's where I want to get, so that we're not having to look at every road project, that we know that there's a mechanism already in place that compels them to look at it, that compels the staff to look at ways to calm traffic, make the ways for students to get to school safe.
So my suggestion to your points are that there was one item that's stipulated, and that's the seed money for these metrics, the screening program for traffic calming measures for the town of South Kingstown. You have latitude as the chair to write this up if we pass it as a motion and present this to the manager and the council. This is what we talked about. This will be one piece that'll help us knit together the council's stated goals and objectives, which I believe will also be rearticulated next year.
Okay.
And and tipping our hat towards the fact that this is really the domain of staff. It's not, we tried really hard and we created a master plan, but it's kind of like, then the council changed and then staff changed, and then we're just out there by ourselves, and we realized that we were completely advisory to the council, so it didn't matter anymore. That might be just enough to get your foot in the door early on enough in the new budget cycle, so that the council may ask the town manager for some feedback over the next month or two.
Is it possible that when recommending this engineer and this, helping slow down speed, to also look at pedestrian and cyclist infrastructure, and when possible, to combine those and say, hey, this would slow down traffic and it would improve bicycle and pedestrian mobility device infrastructure?
Yes.
If they can work together.
Well, the traffic calming, for the benefit of pedestrians and bicyclists.
If there are
as
times
well.
where you can narrow a road, and that's the best way to slow down traffic, and that also provides space for a bigger sidewalk or a bike path, that'd be a great recommendation at times.
Yeah, and I think, gosh, I mean, those are these moonshots, like, and Luke knows this, and Rich knows this. That's serious money for engineering. It takes time. You want to do the right thing. You want to do the public outreach, because if nobody in that corridor wants it, hey, town's got 200 some odd $1 million of a backlog of work to do. So they're not going to waste money out there if it's not necessary.
I make a motion that a proposal of what would be presented to the town council be drafted and presented and distributed for input from the members of the committee, and then a decision made on what would be distributed to the council be at the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, any discussion? No discussion?
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you, Neil.
Okay, who's writing that up?
I'm trying.
Who's writing up the message to the town council? I think you've got a handle on
When
it.
will the next meeting be?
Getting into trouble.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
asking.
it's
I'm
okay.
out.
I can work on it. I maybe just give
When
you.
is our next?
Is it September 11th?
Yeah, if I know.
I will not be here for the 11th.
You won't be here in September?
No.
Okay. I will be here, but I won't be here in October, November.
That's why I think we're providing for the advance.
Okay, all right.
If you want to work in conjunction with you, I'd be glad to.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to take a crack at it.
If you wanna send it before the meeting, just send it to me.
Okay.
I'll distribute it.
Okay.
I'll take the feedback and then,
I mean, it sounds like it's pretty short. I mean, doesn't sound like it's,
We'll see.
okay.
Can I ask if we could address point by point the old business items to chat through them?
Yes, please.
I think we could go through them rather rapidly. The review recommendations on state road projects. The item for 138 was submitted to the state already?
yep,
We have,
Yeah.
we have not provided anything. We were giving an opportunity to provide any input and also to back up, to support what the town staff. So we have not yet done that.
yep.
But provide a letter of support, you mean?
You
We
can.
did have a 2-hour meeting where we addressed going down the road.
Right.
Okay.
That has been submitted.
Right.
Per our earlier conversations, that was strictly initial input.
Mhm.
I don't know, Ken, do you know if they went out to bid for?
I know
design?
they were delayed. I did go to the State Traffic Commission. They did approve the signal at Keeney Road. But Anthony Mako said that they were at least a week behind. It should be out.
Yeah, so essentially they go out to RFQ for a design build team,
Mhm.
but they won't actually doing the final design really until that team is on board, which is gonna be months. So we were talking potentially December by the time they had that team fully on board. So the reason I say it wasn't a rush is because they won't even actually get full pen to paper on designing the roadway. But from that point on, it'll be quick. So I think what the point of you guys weighing in, you can weigh in, you cannot weigh in, but was to just have another community voice, and since it's your charge, really advocating for those issues you want to advocate on.
And
And
that-
you're voicing it directly to the state. You don't have to use us as the
Where
intermediary.
would the advocacy go to? All right.
Yeah, I would go to
DOT?
RIDOT. I can give you the project managers.
If you could forward that to us, then we could have a designation point. All right.
Okay. Now, I didn't get any input from anybody on any additional to what Luke had suggested. Was there any additional,
I provided my comments during the meeting.
did we record those to? Okay.
Yeah,
You
when
took
we
them out?
went through.
Yeah, I know you
each
did. I just didn't know whether.
Everything you had said was reflected.
Okay.
on that.
Excellent.
The only caveat to that was we had, Keeney obviously might have an alignment, a realignment with
At the farm?
Peckham. And we had proposed a similar type option, less drastic,
Yeah.
which was to, sidewalk and kind of get them to Peckham, but 6 one, half dozen the other, but everything else was fine.
Okay, and I think at one point, so, do we need a motion to, send our recommendations, which are to support, the staff's, request?
Didn't we already do that last meeting?
I think what we did was, did we? I think what we did was asked for input, and I don't think I got any. I don't, okay.
Now, if
Well,
we-
it hasn't been sent out. I haven't sent anything out. What I provided had a lot of just background on proximity and why these different suggestions or recommendations were important because of pedestrian and bicycle traffic and proximity to lots of different not just, we want sidewalks here. We want sidewalks here because it's the walkway where people from the train station can get to campus or can get around town. So I think that was part of what I wanted to include.
All right, but so that it ties to what was submitted to the state, when you send us the contact, can you also send us the title and date of the submission so that what we're referencing to the specific document?
The submission that I
Yes.
provided?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, did I not provide that?
I,
one?
well, don't, you sent it to us, but I don't know that you copied us on who you sent it to and when.
Okay.
But I'll look.
It's fine. I'll send the
Just
memo
make sure there's no
to the
gaps.
group
Right.
with the contact, and you can take it from there, you know. Whatever your group does, you can do, by all means.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
And I think that ties into B.
Well, we never, I don't think we ever found out what was all on the STIP, but I think that we're, the only thing was that we would just want to know what it was to support the projects. That's all. So I think we can check that off. I don't know that we'll hear back from Liza Farr on the long-range transportation plan recommendations that we sent in. So, but if you do, let us know. I mean, I don't know whether
Yeah.
we sent it in. I don't know whether it's going to make it into the document or not, but, okay.
And on C, the Safe Streets for All, I provided the letter of recommendation.
We did do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
We worked on
And I
that.
think I just kept it on there because are there any next steps? What's next?
That
Well,
you submitted.
Quite frankly, nothing. We're
Okay.
waiting to hear back, based on last year's submissions, and when they heard back, I think it was upwards of November by
Okay.
the time parties were notified.
Okay.
So we're not gonna hear anything for a few months.
Okay. And that's on whether or not you're going to get the funding.
Yep.
Okay.
We had applied for about 5.5 million to
Okay.
redo Main Street, so.
And I would think November might be optimistic due to staffing cuts in the federal government and.
I don't have a
It's
crystal
reviewed.
ball, you know, my hope is that they'll review them and get the, you know.
I'm going to suggest that we move this, like Main Street and stuff, down to like recurring, discussion, or just take it off until, what do you think? I mean, I don't want to keep having all of these.
Can
think
Luke
it-
just notify us when one of these comes up and we should enter
Yeah,
into discussion?
yeah, I mean, I will
And we'll just-
notify you. I mean,
and then
if
we
we get word on it, I'll certainly bring it
And then
back,
if
but
we made an agenda item.
at this
Okay.
point, it's
Yeah.
baked, it's in, there's not gonna be anything to report until we hear back.
So the Old Tower Hill neighborhood plan, I mean, that draft is out. It's gonna make its way around the town council and planning board and everything through the fall. And I just thought that we should just take a look at it in case there was any kind of wording or anything that we could recommend as far as bike pedestrian. So, what do you think? Is it worth it? I mean, do we feel pretty confident that it seemed pretty heavy on kind of bike infrastructure,
Mhm.
pedestrian infrastructure.
They
as far as-
mentioned further connections to
Yeah.
the existing bike paths and even creating new connections in neighborhoods.
Yeah,
So that was definitely a focus.
so we would want to recommend that stays, that wording stays in there, okay. So do we want to make any recommendations? We can bring this up later because it's still, we can bring it up for September, October, once we get a chance to take a look at it.
Do they have further public forums scheduled?
I believe they will. I
Okay.
think
Yeah, I
that the
believe
town
so.
council,
I went,
I'll have to check with Jamie on what the schedule is for that, but I believe so.
yeah, I went to the one 2 to 3 weeks ago,
Mhm.
and they said there would be more, and then is it in the fall? They plan to push it or finalize it.
That's the hope, we'll see.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big effort, so, but that, yes, they're pushing to get that plan completed. Cause it's really a first step, right? Then the zoning would have to follow, the true ordinances to follow, which is gonna take significant amount of time to implement a new zoning code.
There were some legitimate public concerns with certain aspects, so that will require some modification.
okay. So we'll just keep this on the agenda to just look at again next month. Everybody has a chance to take a look at it. All right, we did 7A. We didn't really, there's a B here. So recommendations for town council to support completion of South County Bike Path. All right, I'm gonna be real quick on this. I did meet with, and I know we I brought this up last month, and a few folks, somebody had said, well, why are we getting involved in that? And I think just to explain, the bike path, most of the bike path comes through South Kingstown. But the very last bit of it, that all of our residents, not all of our, but many South Kingstown residents that use the bike path continue on to Narragansett. And right now, you get off the bike path and you're on the road. And the Narragansett, their government is looking to finish it, and there's a time limit on when they can use the funding. And this is where the bike path ends right now, over by the community center. And then this is the way that they have suggested, and they're getting, I guess they've had a engineering firm.
This was proposed years and years and years.
Yes, but now it's like crunch time, because if they don't, they're going to lose the funds. Okay, he's putting it up here as well.
It's okay.
So in meeting with them, and they were just, sharing this with us, there's really not a whole lot that we can do other than maybe just to alert our town council that this is a potential. We should ask them to support support.
I would agree with that we ask them to support the final leg of the bike path, and along with that, with us as BPAC, writing for support for that final leg of the bike path, to continue what has been on the books
Yeah.
for 30 years.
Yeah. So apparently the Rosemary's family is, I think her maiden name is O'Neill. And so anyway, it's Dave and Rosemary Smith are the ones that have been, and they just want to live long enough to see, they're both in their 70s, and I think they just want to see this completed. And they thought that any kind of input, certainly from their neighbors to the west, might make a difference. So
what is the conclusion of the report?
Well,
There's multiple routes.
this
Since
is,
the bike path has been out there.
Yeah.
there's multiple routes.
this is, okay, I can forward that to you, but this came from their, and you mentioned before, what is the name of the, what is the name of the consulting firm? Dupree. This, I believe, is the final from Dupree as far as the recommendation to keep people off Kingston Road. It's, for me and many people, we would probably still look for the most direct route, but this is certainly the family-friendly.
I mean, I just know
route.
people that live on Strathmore, and they're vehemently opposed to this. So I think I'd be an advocate to support the town in concluding their study
Yes.
and with the community support, making the bike path connection. And I'm leery because it's been forever and they just
Right.
still haven't figured it out.
Right.
Of picking one option over the other without even, it's not our town.
Right.
And I know
And
there's
I'm sorry, I probably did, I'm showing you this.
I like this, but like I said,
I'm showing you this.
my friend's gonna give me a ration of stuff.
Yeah.
Next time I see him.
But the ask is
Yeah.
that we just ask to support whatever they choose.
Okay.
That's not to support this route, but to support the completion of the bike path.
I might have been the individual you were thinking of from the other meeting.
Okay.
Who brought up the issue. And I'm saying, I will go back to what the advisory committee structure is.
Right.
Is to advise the town council.
Mhm.
Is it in our purview? Are we permitted to write a letter like that? I mean, we do it for the state.
Right.
Because we are within the state. Are we permitted to do it for another
No,
municipality?
I'm saying that we, as, as the BPAC, we can recommend that our town council support.
Okay, that was
That's,
fine, that's where I was going.
yes,
with it. And again, it's in keeping with looking at the master plan, which talked about connectivity, not
Yeah.
just within South Kingstown, but to other municipalities.
yes. Okay, and I can draft that, and then, I don't know what their deadline is, but I can draft something, because I kind of was working
Yeah,
with them a
next-
little bit.
Check the calendar, but we won't have another meeting till early September.
Right.
So it would be probably the following week after the BPAC. So we may have another BPAC meeting before even the next meeting of the council. Because it's a second Monday of every month. I mean, sorry, second and fourth Monday of every month.
Okay. Well, I can work on it, send it to you, and if anybody has any input.
It's fine.
Is that okay?
They
And then just
they
send
can
it
put to me
directly?
and they can make markups.
Okay,
and
okay.
get it out.
So what is, I'm sorry, was
Do
there
we
a
need
motion?
a motion or
And we need a
anything?
motion, I think.
I'll set up a motion to communicate to the town council that we advocate, that they advocate for South County Bike Path to be finished in Narragansett.
Yeah, for the completion of the South County.
Of the South County Bike Path within the time period allotted by the state to take advantage of the funds.
Right. Okay.
Does
Alrighty.
anyone want to second that?
I'll second it. I'll keep Ken off of it.
I'll work on it. Okay. All righty. Thank you so much, because that, I really felt. Oh, all in favor? All righty, we've got, one last, let's see. Well, I don't know if, Luke, do you wanna, we've got like 5 minutes. Do you have any staff, reports?
I mean, unless you have, we did a lot of staff stuff tonight, so I won't belabor it. I mean, what I will tell you is, just as far as the school project, you may notice that there's some work going on. It's pre-development work. We're moving the electric and some other utilities out of the way and building a new road as temporary access. The poles were driven today for the temporary fence, and we have building permits in and all that. So over the next couple months, you're gonna start seeing a hole show up for the foundation. So it's moving along at a pretty brisk pace now. And we just awarded our first gross maximum price for the project at $23 million, which includes foundation, steel, and other things. Currently, we're running under budget, but we'll see if that maintains. That's the big one. We have a bunch of projects going on. Old Mountain will be also starting. They had an issue with Rhode Island Energy. It's taken a while, but it looks like Berman's gonna start doing work out there soon. So let's do that. Kingston Road, as you probably have seen, is nearing completion, striping, and I think once striping's done, they're pretty much out of there. So overall looks good. I'm happy not to hit potholes every 2 feet.
I wish the striping gave a little bit more of a, I mean, it's right on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, there's multiple ways to stripe, usually the right way and the wrong way. So I advocate for you figure out the center line of the road, and everything is based off the center line. And if Rich, for example, said, it's 11 foot or 12 foot is good, then that should be consistent. And what would happen in many of these roads is you'd have a weird, wide walking lane or bike lane, but you would visually see that the lanes are just consistently sized. So it looks like in the middle of Peacedale that they just decided to go like a foot off the edge of the pavement.
Right.
And that just looks weird.
So I'm not sure why, because wasn't it straight before, like you're talking about? 'Cause
I've seen
there
it
was
both
part-
ways. It's happened both ways to us on campus, so we've started asking our stripers to do everything off the center line. You know,
I don't know, you know, and honestly, I didn't even notice it. I was just so happy the roadway was paved and there was some new, yeah.
And we're bobbing and weaving for the metal structures that were up there for a couple of years.
Yeah, well, there, you know, not only there, then you have the other end on 108 and then
Yeah.
138, so they're all going off at the same time, so it was like a maze. So that stuff's done, we're happy to see it done. I really don't have, you know, unless you have questions on something, I literally was reviewing the timeline today. We're gonna be kicking off the budget process with the directors, the memo's probably going out tomorrow to start reviewing capital requests, and then operating right behind, so there's that. It's like the hamster wheel, you just
right?
get out of one budget season, get into another.
Yeah, I think maybe the last thing, and I hate us not to have much time because this is a new discussion issue. It was the nighttime on the bike path. Take it away, Ken.
Well, no, I
But
think
do
we can talk about this maybe at another meeting because I think it's worthy of discussion. There's a lot of implications, a lot of or things that were just not fully rounded out. For example, if there are issues in the assistant police chief's career of multitude of infractions, what kind of infractions are they? There's just we don't have to know names. Just were there any drunk driving accidents? Were there fatalities on the bike path? What is the number one thing you do to ensure safe driving at night? Turn on the lights. I don't know. For me, I listened to what was said. I'm
Yeah.
like, fair, but I think they inadvertently took away a very safe means of travel. And we have a ton of state and town roads that do not have lighting and probably never will have lighting. So I don't.
You want to put lighting on the bike path?
I think there was a discussion that, that could have insinuated that. And I don't think we want to be that if you zoom out, from outer space and you look and you say, what's that little bright spot there? Is that a metropolis? No, that's South Kingstown.
I don't
They've
want it
turned
in
all
my
the lights
backyard.
on.
Literally, that's my backyard, and I don't want it.
But I think to support the safety of the residents, as the police department was trying to do, I think maybe we could take it up at a later meeting.
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
this-
Yeah, there's some people that use that as transportation, and certainly in the fall months, it starts to get, fall and winter, it gets dark sooner, and you can't plan to get home from someplace without it getting dark, and there you are. So you're either on the road or you're on the bike path, which is safer, but you're not allowed to be there when it's
But if you
after dark.
So I'll have to watch it.
Yeah.
Just before I say anything further.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, anything
Sounds like
else?
It's a case of if there is a proposal made, that it be the earlier of a specified hour or dusk. Because I think part of it is in the development of the bike path, it was concerned about going by residential areas and people were saying, what's going to be behind my house all the time?
Right.
And it was to set a standard for that. It also, I don't see how does it handle with the conflict of what we've advocated for, I've advocated for, in regards to the train station, where they have now set up a bicycle and no parking in the evening on the specific things to make sure that people are not parking there long-term, that it is dedicated for bike or pedestrian on the trail. So if you do a full waiver of that,
Oh, I
you've
see.
overcome the parking situation, you've undermined the parking situation at the Kingston station. So if there is something, Ken, let's consider if it's the set no later than the winter hours. The earlier dusk, you can accommodate the summer, or 8 p.m. or something like that, just so that people are able to commute.
It's
I know there
No,
may be
it doesn't.
objections to that, but
no,
if it's
no,
like
no.
that-
I just don't want lights on the bike path. I don't
No,
mind
no, I
people
can understand
with
on lights, but if
bicycles.
somebody, you can put a light on your bicycle.
Oh,
that's what he's
bicycle
talking
lights,
about,
I
yes.
have no problem with.
Yeah.
That's not an issue.
Well,
But
we
if
can-
it comes up, consider those points. I just wanted to raise the point that when I heard about it, I was thinking about the parking situation at the station, which they've gotten
Yeah.
under control in that section.
Yeah, yep. So, anything else, any other, communications that anybody's had, heard from anybody?
Any other new applicants? Anybody waiting?
But I'm
I
aware.
don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. I haven't heard from, Eric.
And reach out to Stedman's and put a help wanted sign.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
You can recruit.
yeah, I'm thinking I was kind of thinking about putting something on our town, but I don't know.
Why not?
I'm just gonna troll and just sit there and read all the comments. Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
God. So, anyway, motion to.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, who won?
No, she did.
Okay, any second?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Lou. Thanks.